Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's The Lion King, brought to us by Virgin. Based on one of the most beloved Disney movies of all time, it also was released not only on Super Nintendo, but Sega Genesis, handheld systems, and even computer systems, and is widely considered one of the more popular Disney licensed games of the era. While many people, of course, enjoy the game, it also has been seen as difficult and challenging, especially with a few key moments throughout the game, including even the second level of the game, which gave a lot of kids trouble back in the day. In this run of the game, I'm going to be playing on the hardest difficulty. I think it only affects how many lives you start off with and how much damage enemies do, though I'm not even quite positive if that's all it ends up doing. But either way, it doesn't add any other levels or change up the ending of the game. In the game, you get to play as both young Simba and adult Simba as you're going through the levels, and it does a pretty good job of actually following the movie, taking some key moments and locations of the film and turning them into levels. I think there's only a couple of times where it really strays away from the movie overall, but for the most part, Lion King does a pretty good job as far as being a movie licensed tie-in game. Playing as young Simba, you don't really have the kind of abilities you'll have as adult Simba of really combating a lot of the enemies. Thankfully, most of the enemies are rather small in the forms of like small lizards and bugs, porcupines, that you'll be dealing with. You can roar to flip over porcupines, or you can roll into them by doing a run and then hitting down on the D-pad to roll into them, as well as you can jump on a lot of the enemies in order to damage them. At the end of the first level, we have our battle against a hyena. We'll be fighting a lot of the hyenas throughout the course of the game. Instead of being able to actually take them on head-on, you'll have to kind of wait for them to tire out. Once they've jumped a couple of times, they will stand still for a moment, allowing you then to jump on their head in order to do damage. So just wait for him to jump past you a couple of times, tire, jump on him, and move on to the next stage.
Is our kingdom.
The second level of the game is Can't Wait to Be King, and this is the level that starts to give people some trouble. The main reason for it is because the game is kind of maze-like in this stage, where you have to use monkeys to kind of throw you to the correct platform so that you can continue on. There's two different colored types of monkeys. You have the purple ones and the pink ones, with the pink ones being able to flip by roaring at them, and by turning them when you get propelled up into the air and gets thrown around by the monkeys, whatever direction they're facing, they will throw you in a different direction, and you need to have them all kind of set up properly so that you can get past. Right after those segments, though, you immediately go on top of an ostrich and have the first of the riding segments. And during this part, you have to jump, duck, and double jump your way over a series of treacherous stuff in your way, whether it be tree branches and rhinos in the way, ducking underneath of things, and making sure that you're able to keep Simba going throughout this segment. So right away, you're testing your puzzle-solving skills as well as your reflexes, which I'm sure is why this level became so jarring for many that grew up with this one. In the next segment, you'll be jumping on a couple of hippos, working your way to the top, and then jumping over this big giraffe in order to land on another ostrich, which will start running. In the second segment here, though, you don't get indications on when to duck, when to jump, or when to double jump, so you kind of just have to figure it out as you're going. If you're nearing a tree and there's no rhino, you're probably going to want to duck, and then other times you're going to need to do the double jump. Sometimes I'll end up doing double jumps, even when I don't need to, and a lot of times you won't be penalized for doing the double jump. You just have a little bit less time to react to whatever's coming next. But double jumping sometimes can be a little bit of a safer option on some of the areas here. When you make it to the end, though, the ostrich will propel you over to this section. Before going even into the tree that's above us, we're going to head to the right, grabbing a one-up along the way, jumping from log to log, and then we're going to come back over now to the left. This way, just you have an extra life in your repertoire, and you can use that. There's a few extra lives, including one here that I get automatically for being thrown around by the monkeys. Use them and work your way on a few of the platforms to find this pink monkey and hit it in order to turn it using the roar. You have to make sure that you use the right rhino as well as have the monkeys in the right place, which is why this can be confusing. Having the monkey where we need here, this will end up launching us across the water to the other side. Doing this is what we're going to need to by throwing ourselves all the way around. We'll land on this platform, being able to knock this monkey down from the platform it's on to just a slightly lower down branch. It doesn't even look like the monkey moves all that much, but it does. Then we can come back over to the rhino and go back through this segment, being thrown all around, back across the giant gap into the next section. And when we hit that pink monkey this time around, he will end up throwing us to the left, throwing us all the way back over to the right. Once we land here, roar again at the other pink monkey located here, and finally, after a lot of stuff and moving one more monkey, we can complete this segment. Yes, it's a lot of like extra things you need to do, but once you have it finally set up, this pink monkey will throw you all the way past the other tree and down on the last giraffe and out of the stage. The third level of the game, thankfully, is much easier. In fact, most of the rest of the levels are pretty easy. Not as much puzzle solving involved, though there is one maze level late in the game, which is usually pretty easy to figure out. But we start off in the elephant graveyard battling 2 of the hyenas. So you have to take them both out, though, in order to continue. So wait for them to kind of jump and tire themselves out. Sometimes you can even get lucky like I was and be able to kind of stack them on top of one another. And this will allow you to jump on both at the same time. If they're like kind of stuck together, it makes the fight obviously a lot easier. Always pay attention to your health, which is located in the upper right corner. The upper left corner is your roar ability, as you probably noticed me using it throughout the course of the level so far. And anytime you see like the bugs throughout areas, you'll want to grab them in order to bring back some of your health. These vulture enemies that are introduced in this level are a big pain. They hover above you, so you gotta be careful when you make some jumps, go up to some platforms. A lot of times I kind of just outrun them and move on to other parts of the stage. Since they like to hover a lot, that gives me opportunity to kind of just keep on moving and get past them to the point that they just kind of give up their chase. Here you have to move very quickly, jumping back and forth, left and right on these very small ledges as you work your way up to the very top. Once you do get up top, very quickly pull yourself up so you don't end up getting hit by the water that is rising quickly. Right after that, we have more vultures trying to get us as we jump from a series of different bones. If you end up falling during some of this segment, you're going to have to do a bit of backtracking, which is annoying. You have to kind of go through the areas we've already been to before. So you want to try to do your best when it comes to these platforms. Here we're near the very beginning of the level again, jumping on that first kind of skull, and when we make it over here, it's time to battle 2 more of the hyenas. If you're lucky, once again, we can kind of get them stuck together, like as one big sprite on screen, and this will allow us to tire them out and jump on their heads together. Once you're going to need to jump on them 3 times to defeat them. There's actually another hyena which will show up after one of them has been taken out, so be ready because another one will drop in as soon as one of them has been defeated. You'll then have to defeat the third of the hyenas, and the wall to the left of us will open up or break away so that we can actually continue on in the stage. There's a lot of times where you have these artificial walls in the game that are kind of set up that you have to defeat certain enemies in order to keep on going. The next stage is the wildebeest stampede stage. Here is some pretty cool graphics of just having kind of Simba in the front, and you have the animals kind of chasing up from behind. You can kind of get a good idea of where they're coming, and you have a little bit of room to work with. You can also jump in order to help you kind of maneuver, and you're going to need to jump, especially when the rocks start showing up. This will be a bit of practice, as you have to kind of get used to what lane and what spot you can stand in to avoid which of the animals as they're running forward. Thankfully, the rocks you have to deal with will give you a warning. They kind of flash for a few moments in the front of the screen so that you know when they're about to spawn. They always flash for the same amount, so you can kind of like get them 1, 2, 3 and then get prepared to jump over them or try to get out of the way. This is one of those levels that seems longer than it is because it's just that intense with the wildebeest coming up and the rocks in front of you. At the very end of the level, there's a question mark rock where it kind of just a question mark and then comes your way. But if you've gotten used to the timing with the rocks, you'll still be able to hopefully jump over it pretty easily and move on to the next level.
Kill him.
The next level is Simba's Exile. You're going to have a whole bunch of rocks falling at you from above, which can be pretty annoying. They also can hurt pretty badly, especially on the higher difficulty. And you also have these segments that are going to be coming up where you have boulders chasing you. This becomes a common theme throughout the rest of the game, with segments where boulders are going to be chasing you. So what you have to do is quickly run and do a roll underneath this porcupine to get past. If you do not roll through the porcupine, you decide to either try to roar at it or jump into it, you're just going to end up getting hit by the boulder, and it's instant death if that happens. Here we have another instance of that. Just quickly run as fast as possible through the area. Once you fall off the edge, though, hug the left button. That way you can kind of get and hook yourself and be able to kind of get to this area here. It's a bit difficult at times. I will say hit detection's a bit touchy when it comes to instant death stuff here in Lion King. It's one of those things I haven't really been a big fan of every time I've kind of gone back and replayed the game. Here we're going to use a series of rocks coming out of the wall to kind of make our way over here to the right. Drop on down here and use our rolling ability. This will help us take out a lot of the porcupines. You have to kind of time the rolling specifically, though, in order to make sure that you get past all of them without taking damage. At the very bottom, there's a big giant pit, so you have to be very cautious going to each little rock and each of the platforms. You may want to take your time, but once you get past that, you move on to the next level of the game. The next stage is Hakuna Matata, and this is the last of the levels where we get to play as young Simba. It's a bit confusing. You have a bunch of waterfalls that will kind of push and pull you in directions as you're making your way down, and you have a pretty annoying boss at the end, the giant gorilla that you have to do a pretty big lengthy battle against. Work our way up here after going down the first series of waterfalls and come to this spot where we have to jump back and forth between these little cliffs in order to make it up to this platform above. Once up here, run to the far right, and what you're going to need to do is swing to a series of rocks in order to get past the waterfall that's pushing you down. If you jump into it, into the water, you'll fall down. You'll have to kind of do this segment again. The hardest part of it is the very end, where you kind of have to jump backwards onto the platform, where you'll find one of the checkpoints, and then work your way over here and drop down onto the waterfalls, making your way down to the bottom portion of this platform. The next segment has a whole bunch of logs coming down this waterfall, which is pretty tricky to actually kind of get up. They move pretty fast, some of the logs, and it takes a little bit of practice to kind of get used to how high your jump is. Simba can actually jump pretty high. You'll notice a few really high jumps I'm able to make and actually land safely on one of the logs above me. Other than that, it's not a whole lot of strategy. It's just kind of figuring out how the logs work, how slow some of them move, or how fast other ones move, figuring out the best ones to jump to, but eventually, a little perseverance, you'll be able to make it to the very top of it. After that, you're going to drop down a series of ledges and hit the next checkpoint marker, which will then begin the boss encounter. This gorilla is pretty annoying. Basically, he's constantly throwing rocks at you, and you can jump on the rocks, thankfully, to get rid of them. However, you cannot hurt him unless he ends up kind of changing the way he's sitting. Basically, he'll kind of stretch out and thump the ground a little bit. When he changes up his position is when you can jump on him, which is after the rocks have been thrown, and he throws them in a couple of patterns. The longer the fight goes on, as you're making it farther into the fight, the more rocks he will throw out before he gives you that opportunity to actually hit him. If you attempt to get close to him while he's doing this, he's just going to bat you away, which will end up hurting you pretty good, and you'll just have to kind of reset that whole kind of thing and start the whole part over again. Here we're going to climb up and just wait a few moments and then jump over to the left. That way we can kind of get up here as he kind of bounces away from platform to platform and gets up to this one here. Since you aren't able to kind of attack him for portions, you have to kind of just sit there and dodge the rocks as he throws them. This is why this battle ends up dragging on longer than it probably feels necessary, especially once you start adding in more sets of rocks he has to throw before he finally gives you that opportunity to land a hit. Right here, we have a lot of the patterns. We have to wait for him to throw all these rocks and then finally able to deliver a hit. After a while, he will finally leave the battlefield. He hits this rock up here, which crumbles apart, having him fall away, and us completing the level. Now we are finally adult Simba, which changes up the gameplay for a little bit. We have the ability now to use our claws to slash at enemies. Introduced also is the cheetah enemies, which these guys are pretty abundant, and you will fight quite a lot of them throughout the course of the end port of the game, and they're pretty easy still, as you're able to kind of combo hits against them with the claws, but they are a bit of a nuisance. You'll also have, during this level in particular, a bunch of these kind of gateways where a bunch of the cheetahs will keep spawning and trying to attack you, and you just kind of stand here and keep swinging your claw and swiping at them, slowly defeating them all. Once the entire set of them is defeated, Rafiki ends up showing up and gets rid of the fence, the gateway there, and allows us to kind of continue on to the next portion of the level. Over here, hit this rock, but be very careful not to fall into the rock or touch the rock in any way as it's rolling. Even if it's not crushing you, if you touch the rock in any way, shape, or form while it's still rolling, it's an instant death, which is pretty annoying. After the checkpoint marker, climb up here, watching out for some monkeys. You can easily swipe them off the screen, which is pretty fun. Just a single swipe will get rid of them. Break it down the little bit of the vines to take out the next cheetah, and climb up here. Here we have another one of these gateways set up with the cheetahs that keep spawning, and just stay in here, keep on swinging that paw, and knocking each of the cheetahs off of the screen. After Rafiki gets rid of the boundary, we're going to head to the left, and you have to run quickly this time because there is a boulder that will chase you as you're running down this slope. But just keep on running. The boulder speeds up a really big bit at the very, very end, but as long as you kind of keep moving, you just get right past it. I guess it's just to kind of lock it in place to make you kind of more anxious than anything else. Right after that, though, we do have another boulder that we're going to have to hit, and it'll roll down, allowing us to platform our way over. Once again, just as long as you don't run into the boulder itself from behind, you won't have any problems there. Then you're going to have to climb up a series of more platforms, each time, of course, pulling ourselves up, watching out for some monkeys, but nothing too big here. Now, when you make it up here, climb up to this platform, run to the right, hit this boulder, wait for it to pass, and then run to the left. And we need to do this so that we can jump up high enough to get to this platform located up here. Right after this, we'll have another one of these gateways that will show up, more cheetahs, and more clubbing to do to knock them all out. After this third and final gate, though, that's the end of the stage. Just run down a couple of more platforms, you'll have a small scene, and we'll move on to the next level.
You must take your place in the circle of life.
The next level is Be Prepared, named after, of course, Scar's song from the movie. And this level is filled with lava. You'll have like little volcanoes set up that will spew lava up into the air. You have more of those cheetahs, which are pretty annoying. Hyenas that you'll have to battle now as well, which we'll have to do a lot more battling with hyenas later on. But the biggest thing out there is the bats. The most annoying thing about it is the bats, that is for sure. Anytime you see the bat, if you can kind of get a jump on the bat and hit it while it's still hanging, is your best bet to take care of it. It can be difficult to see the bats too because of course, they kind of blend in with the background and the like, but those bats, man, you're talking about things that drain my health more than anything in this game, is probably the bats during this stage. There is some bugs to pick up to replenish some of the health as we run on through, and sometimes I'm able to kind of backtrack a little bit in order to kind of get one of the bats taken care of, but they will always seem to kind of get the jump on me and the better of me and take me out. When you make it over here, you have to jump up into the air and hit this stalagmite in the air in order to drop it down through the platform below. Just like with the boulders though, when it's falling, if you hit it, it's instant death, which is very annoying and easy to do. There was a couple of times I ended up doing it and dying and then realized I was just a little bit too close than I should have been, and I ended up dying without really realizing why it was. The hit detection is a bit lax there, so you can end up easily dying from that rock as it's falling down without really kind of understanding why. Next up, though, we have a river of lava that we're going to have to go across. There's some extra one-ups throughout, which will help because this area is a little bit difficult. Not only being able to get out of the lava and deal with some of the enemies, especially those bats, but just the whole stage as a whole. So it's nice to have a little bit of extra lives. Right after that, you have to run back and forth through like a zigzag pattern through this hallway, escaping a rock just barely, which of course will instantly take you out if it ends up running into you. After a series of tricky platforms and jumps, kind of maneuvering your way around, you'll eventually come to the second part of the river lava portion. Very short there, just takes us to the left side, in which case you'll have to jump out of the lava, off the rock, up here, battling a couple of the cheetahs that are waiting for you to try to get the jump on you and hurt you. Right after that, though, watch out for some dripping lava, pick up some health, and then move to the last portion of the stage. There's no boss here or anything, but what you have to do is wait. And that's probably why this area is a little bit difficult here at the end. Rocks are falling the entire time, as well as lava will spew out of these openings. After a while, each of the openings with the lava coming out of them will have like a big portion of a rock kind of come down and close them up. And that's what you need to wait for. Eventually, the one at the very end, the one I'm looking at right now, that one will finally be able to get kind of closed up, and we can then jump on top of it and it'll spew up into the air, sending us upwards and completing the stage. It's a bit difficult to dodge a lot of the rocks, and you're also watching out for the lava spewing upwards, but it'll take a bit of time, one of those kind of like time-wasting segments of the game. But if you're able to kind of figure out where you can stand and dodge a lot of the rocks, that's the key to getting through this segment unscathed, or at least as unscathed as possible. It takes forever, but eventually that rock will come down, allowing us to fly up into the air and move on to Simba's return, the next level of the game, which is a maze-like stage. I'm going to be taking the quickest way through the level, going all the way to the right at the very beginning, then going through the cave. Now, each of the areas that has hyenas here, you will have to battle the hyena before you can go through the next cave. Kind of stupid since it's kind of an open cave and nothing's preventing you from going through, but you can't go through without taking out the hyena. So take out the one there, then go to the next cave. As soon as you come through the next cave, though, you'll have another hyena waiting for you. Take it out and then move on to this screen here. You'll have two hyenas below you. Take out one on the rock and then you can kind of drop to the next one and take out the second one. Once both are done, though, instead of going to any of the other caves, you want to head up back where you were and head through this upper left cave, just upper left of where we were before. The next room is a little bit more challenging as you have multiple of the hyenas all at once for you to battle. You can separate them a bit and there is health, so if you are low on health going in or take some damage, be sure to grab the health over the middle cave and then go through the right bottom one. Next up, a couple more hyenas waiting for us and we'll go through the next cave on the left. In the next room, you'll have another hyena immediately. As soon as you pop out, that one's waiting for you. Then climb up these rocks and get up to the top portion. This hyena can be a pain sometimes because he likes to jump right at me. But once he's done, we're going to be going through this left cave right where we took him out. Now is the final room of this whole level. Just got to take out all 4 of the hyenas in this section. There's health for us to grab, thankfully, but still it's a bit of a challenge at first, especially getting the spacing needed, because the hyenas really are easy to take out, but you have to make sure that you're not too close to them, because when they're doing that little biting animation, they may end up delivering a hit. It's now time for the final level of the game, and there's a couple of strategies of taking out Scar, and you have to battle him multiple times in the level, working your way through Pride Rock. One strategy is, of course, swiping at him while he's kind of like backing away and protecting yourself from his attacks. When he ends up getting kind of tired, he'll start panning, and then you're going to get close to him and throw him across the stage, and you'll need to do this a couple of times in order to get him to run away for the next portion of the level. You're then going to have to do a series of platforming, watching out for hyenas, though you don't have to take out the hyenas at this point. You just have to keep on moving. You may want to take them out if they're in your way or you can't get to the next platform, but for the most part, you just kind of can keep on moving through doing a bunch of platforming. Up here, do some more swinging across. There is some health located here if you want to try to risk getting it, or climb up to the next platform. Once up here, lightning will strike. Run quickly to the left to the next kind of wall and climb up, trying to watch out for the lightning. The faster you move, the less likely the lightning is going to hit you. Then do a bunch of swinging up to this portion where you'll have to battle Scar again. Now, instead of just attacking him with your paw, a nice little strategy is actually jumping on him. In fact, you can jump kind of like right on his head, like a little bit past his mane, like right on it, and you'll be able to damage it. And a lot of times, he won't be able to hit you. His swipes will miss. Now, other times he'll be able to hit you, but if you hit the jump and time it correctly, you can keep jumping, avoiding his claws, and be able to do damage. And in fact, this does more damage than pawing him, because you don't have to throw him then. Normally, you would have to tire him out enough to throw him 4 times, and then he would move on to the final portion of the level. But with jumping on him, it actually speeds the battle up greatly. Over here, we have a little bit more platforming and then have to climb up another series of rocks here. Lightning will strike sometimes during this segment, so kind of wait for the fire to dissipate off of the rocks when it does strike in order to keep climbing up to the top portion. When you make it up here, it's time for the final encounter, though, against Scar. Now, this battle is a little bit tougher to tell how much damage you've done to Scar, as he won't run away, as this will lead to the final fight. But you usually can tell because he gets really tired and starts panning for a longer period of time. Normally, you would have to throw him, I think, 4 times and then throw him off of the ledge. But once he gets low on health, you'll be able to just throw him once and throw him directly off of Pride Rock and defeat him that way. This fight can drag on for a long time if you use other methods and other strategies instead of kind of like jumping on him. I only kind of swipe once in a while when I need to, but once he's tired up, throw them off the edge, and you've completed The Lion King for the Super Nintendo.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
So there you have it, The Lion King for the SNES. The Sega Genesis version is very similar, just kind of little minor changes here and there, but I think for the most part it's pretty much the same overall game. I've always played the SNES version of Lion King more, though it's funny that I played a lot more of the Disney titles on Genesis growing up, but for whatever reason, Lion King on Super Nintendo is the version that I ended up having. I don't think it's as quite memorable or as great as some of the other classic Disney titles of the era, but I still have always enjoyed playing through this one and enjoyed playing and learning it again in order to do this video. And while it may not be my personal favorite, I've always felt that Lion King was the best overall made as far as the classic renaissance of Disney, the animation, the music, just everything about it. Lion King still stands the test of time, probably always will. It's just one of these amazing films. I love so many Disney movies that it's impossible for me to pick like just one direct favorite, as I love so many of the older classic ones, and then of course the Disney Renaissance, and even some of the more recent Disney movies I have very much enjoyed. But I think out of all of them, Disney animated movies, I think Lion King would get my vote as the best overall quality one. But of course that's always up to debate, everyone has their own opinion. What is your personal favorite of the Disney movies, the animated movies, or maybe just flat out your favorite live action Disney movie as well? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd be interested to see what other people think. I also think the sequels of Lion King were some of the better ones, because man, some of those straight to DVD or straight to VHS Disney sequels really weren't all the best, but I think the ones they made for Lion King, especially Lion King 2, is actually pretty enjoyable. And I think that's where Lion King gets a nod as well. Better of the straight to DVD or whatever sequels. There's sequel movies that just always ended up falling a bit flat. But anyway, as the credits finish up, we have our the end screen, and then it'll go back to the start and we can start the game all over again. But with that, guys, that wraps up this episode of Play It Through.